What's up, Philly sports fans? It's 8:42. It's time for EoP. I'm Big Al.
I'm Joey Sheeran.
I'm Freddie Burns.
And the Phillies win a series. They win 2 games in a row, and against one of the best teams in baseball. Go figure, right, guys? This is. I said it on one of the post-game shows last week. This is who they're going to be. It is going to be the Cardiac Kids all the way up to the end of the season. But a big win tonight. A big win all around. Production up and down the line. But again, the bottom of the lineup really producing again, coming up big in big moments. But we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about Eagles. You know, another exciting piece of news, Eagles football is back, training camp today. That's amazing. Talk a little Sixers as well. But I want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by David R. Cherry, cherryinjurylaw.com, 610-565-0300. David R. Cherry will fight for your rights for workers' comp, motor vehicle, personal injury, criminal law. Go to cherryinjurylaw.com or simply call them at 610-565-0300, cherryinjurylaw.com. So let's just start right off. Phillies game just ended. 6 o'clock start again. Joe, I don't know what's worse, 6:40 or 6 o'clock starts.
But I just don't get it. I mean, it's funny because usually the third game of a series is normally a day game. So right around 1 o'clock, I was thinking like, oh, let me check the TV guide, see if it's on there. And it said 6:05, and I was like, are you kidding me? 6:05, like that is worse than 6:40. Like I would have rather have been at 1 o'clock. I know some people can't watch it, but you can listen. And yeah, I don't know. I just figured that maybe it was, a little bit earlier, but not as early because they only have about an hour and a half trip down on 95 to get home. So maybe that's why it balanced out.
Yeah, and they have the day off tomorrow, too, on top of it for travel day. Because they're going to head out to Pittsburgh. See a lot of our Philly Sports Trips friends out there for that one. They have a big trip going out there. That one sold out fast. But, I mean, Joe, I mentioned earlier, today it was from the bottom of the lineup. The big hit was Amundo Sosa giving Phillies a lead with a big home run. That they were down to the last out of the last of that inning. And he hits a foul ball first, very far, deep. And you're like, and then boom, next bat, it's out of here. They have the lead, and they kept tacking on. That guy they just threw him off, and they just kept tacking on, giving them the 6-4 lead ultimately, and all they would need. Joe, what can you say about that bottom of the lineup? People were blaming Kevin Long for why are the top, like, why is Trey Turner not hitting? Why is Kyle Schwarber not hitting? But all these young guys are hitting well. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that people are always looking for a scapegoat. These veterans that are in the top of the lineup, I don't even know how much help they actually get from Kevin Long these days. Because you would think that they're as seasoned as they're going to get when it comes. And I understand that sometimes there's a tick, there's a little bit of a flaw. They go to Kevin, or Kevin comes to them, vice versa. And he's like, hey, let's work on this. And sometimes it gets fixed, and sometimes it doesn't. And then eventually, someone just gets out of a slump. I understand that. But this is the game of baseball. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no real reason why people get so cold or so hot, or, just go on these stretches of, being cold or hot. It's just for me, and I could be totally off on this, but I feel like, especially with this sport, like things just have to be right in the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like things just have to be clicking on all cylinders for everyone and everything to be productive and successful. Do I have a worry about the top of the lineup? I really don't. I know Trey Turner is taking a lot of heat for all of this. And I was thinking the other night with the 2 hours and getting ejected, I thought that was going to be his little bit of a wake-up call. But then he goes 0 for 4 last night, and Kevin Stocker said on the broadcast, like, he's taking his woes from the plate onto the field. And finally, today, Topper was like, hey, we're going to give you 2 days off. You're done. Kyle Schwarber, he is a little bit cold right now. I think he's 1 for his past 22 at-bats. But then again, Kyle Schwarber, we see him make the big hit when it matters. I don't have anywhere. This is Kyle Schwarber's MO. This is what happens. Do I like it? Absolutely not. But am I in fear of him going on this long drought for the rest of the season? Absolutely not. Bryce Harper has looked really, really good, not only at first base. Fred, your video earlier was spot on. But just his approach at the plate, the past series, really, he's been really good. JT had a big knock tonight. It's just everything is going to fall in line. These dominoes are going to fall in line. Bryson Stott, one of the best young players in the MLB right now. Alec Boehm, again, sometimes a little sketchy, but listen, he had the walk-off last night. Brandon Marsh has his moments. I mean, this is a lineup that is built for offense, but sometimes that's just not what we're going to get. I mean, it's just, again, it's the rule of thumb with baseball, in my opinion.
It's ridiculous, the fans. It's crazy. Mr. Crockpot chimed in out there jumping off. Now the scapegoat is exactly, you nailed it, Joe. I got my brother texting me. One game he's out of the lineup, Sosa hits a home run. He changes his name to Trey Turner, but then he puts like a D in parentheses, Trade Turner. And I'm just like, have you not learned from Castellanos? Like, chill out. Chill out. They're going to make mistakes, and they're growing. He's learning. He's in a new city. It's a lot of pressure here.
Yeah.
Like, just chill out. Like, this is a long, long season. I made a tweet the other day. In September of last year, from the 15th to the 30th, the Phillies were 4-10 with 2 5-game losing streaks. Followed that up with a 3-3 October, and they went to the World Series. I mean, they were in the bottom of the ninth or top of the ninth against the Cardinals, down 1-0 or whatever not down 1-0, whatever the score was. If they don't come back, it's just like, come on. Like, how many times are we going to jump ship and then get back on? They're 55-47. If the Giants lose tonight, they're, after all this mess and all this craziness this week, they're going to be number 1 in the wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
it's insanity to me. And the bottom of the lineup is that's what teams do. Like, the bottom of the lineup is carrying the team, because teams and good teams have timely hitting from all players, not just the studs.
Sure. And you bring up, the one loss for the Giants tonight, which they won their first game in a long time last night. That puts the Phillies not in just the wild card, but the top spot in the wild card. But it's just amazing how tight this race is. And that's what's going to make this different, because a lot of people keep comparing to last year. They keep saying, oh, it's a lot like last year, which I can see the comparison. Understandable. But the one thing from last year, this race was not that tight. There was a couple teams in it, but that was it. I mean, Philly, San Fran, Cincinnati, Arizona, and Miami are all within a half a game between the top spot and being 2 games out of the wild card. Like, let that settle in for a second. So this is where you have to. These games are, I hate to say must-win games, but yeah, they are must-win games. They could not afford to lose another series, lose another game, and be done and just go ho hum. We'll get them next time. I mean, I'm not saying the season's over in any which way, but there has to be a little, pick you up by your bootstraps moment from the Fightins. And Freddie puts it up on the screen here. I mean, look, it is that close right now. It's funny how your wild card and my wild card are backwards. I don't understand how that works, but all right. I'm looking at the same.
I'm using MLB.com, bro.
So am I. That's the funny part. It has, I guess, because they're all tied. It's probably.
Technically, they're in the top spot. They're just tied with 2 other teams.
Yeah,
they're tied.
Yeah,
right?
So,
no, you're right. They'll be the sole top one if the Giants lose. But if the Giants win, then they would move back. So
they actually just flashed the graphic up on my TV in front of me. That's how I knew that they were all tied. But hold on, to your point, like you saying, like, oh, this is not last year or anything like that. To me, what's going on is this is every year, because what happens is one little thing happens. Everyone, looks for the nearest bridge. The Phillies come out and they play better against the superior teams. They lose against the inferior. What happened last year at the end of the season? They played like crap against the Cubs. We're all questioning whether they should even get into the playoffs, whether they deserve to be. And then they go in, they beat the Cardinals, they beat the Braves, they beat the Padres, they go to the World Series. The top teams, that's when they show up to actually play. So, I mean, the Guardians, losing 2 to them the other series, like, did it suck? Yeah, absolutely. But was I that worried about it? No, because what happened, a few weeks ago? We take 3 or 4 against the Rays, and then we play well against the Brewers. It didn't go all our way, of course. But then here we are, and I'm sorry, when the Rays, when we beat them 3 out of 4, they were the top team in the AL. Now the Orioles come in as the top team in the AL, and we take 2 or 3 from them. This is an every year thing. Is it the same, knockdown domino effect? I mean, maybe not per se, but this is what happens every year. The Phillies lose bad games to bad teams, and then they win great games against great teams. I mean, this is just the up and down. I mean, this is just what we have learned to know as Philly fans, not even just Philly fans, but most general Phillies fans. And people, for whatever reason, forget about it because, again, they love to complain about stuff.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some of the good stuff, and
absolutely.
Here's a tweet from you, Joe, one of your comments about Bryson Stott here. And has it come up yet? No, it hasn't. Now I got it up here. Bryson Stott is the best hitter on this baseball team. He
absolutely
has the greatest approach every single night, night in and night out. Had another timely hit last night. I'm not sure what his stats were today, but game after game, this guy what was he today? 1 for 4 today, but he scored, 1 strikeout.
Yeah, he had a hit.
Ball in play. He's a budding superstar, the next Chase Utley type guy, and it's just great. It's just great.
Freddie said
it sucks because you get these guys who are still stroking like Juan Soto and some of these other younger players, and it's like, well, where's the respect for Bryson Stott? I mean, this guy, he leads the league in 2-strike hits. His approach and just his at-bats in general, say he goes up against a starting pitcher and gets 3 at-bats against a starting pitcher. He's taking probably about 20 pitches when it comes to balls, strikes, and hits and foul balls. There's about at least 20 pitches on 3 at-bats from a starting pitcher. That matters. That counts. His approach at the plate is something that I don't know if I've ever seen in a Phillies uniform before.
And he's so young. He's just so young still.
He's young, and Fred, I was kind of joking a little bit because I keep bringing up, everybody says that Chase Utley comparison to Stott, and I always say I hate when people do that because it's so early. I feel like you put a lot of weight on people to try to compare them, but I can see and I'll take the hit from tonight from Bryson Stott. He hit it off the bat. It was just a little blooper, but the way it landed, it got him on first base and got things going for them. And those are the kind of things that Chase Utley and guys like Jimmy Rollins did back in the day that made the Phillies the Phillies. Like these bloop hits, the manufacturing runs is the term they would use. And they were doing that. And I can see that he definitely doesn't look like last year. You could see like the moment got to him sometimes, like, the bright lights. It was rookie-esque type year for him. And then this year, he's just like he went from a boy to a man, I guess is the best way. We saw it from the get, and it hasn't let up. Like that.
He's got about 20 hits over what he had all last season already.
Mm-hmm.
He's what he did last year. I think your comparison of a boy becoming a man is absolutely spot on. And can you even just imagine the knowledge and the tutelage he got from Bryce and Nick and Schwarber and all these other guys that he's been playing with for now, at least a full season, having an off season with these guys. It's probably been huge for him.
Yeah.
He's batting 300, 19 stolen bases, 113 hits. Just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. His slugging is 430, OPS 772. It's just a budding superstar in this town again, and it's from we were crushing the farm system year after year through that 10-year drought, and now you're starting to see some of these guys at least pan out, But another guy that's been tremendous and putting the team on his back again tonight, a huge hit to push the lead further. Bryce Harper. Even in the loss Monday night, hits the home run. Last night, he scores the game, hits a home run, and scores the game-tying run. You could see the energy from him. It's contagious. He's almost willing them to victory, very similar to some of those playoff series. And just Bryce Harper, I said it last year, and I didn't know if I was being prisoner of the moment, but he is, I think he is my favorite athlete in Philadelphia sports history. I'm really almost there because
he's up there, man.
If they would have won it all, I probably would have put him over Doc for me, because I just love that. Like, the guy gives his all every single night, says the right things, kisses the fans' ass, like tells us how much he loves us all the time, and then he produces in big moments. I never really see that. Like, I feel like we have these great players, but then the big moments happen and they don't come up. They don't hit that home run against the Padres. They don't hit continuous clutch plays like this. It's just, I love Bryce Harper.
And I think another thing that goes along with it, with him and Doc and the guys who we, praise, is that when they lose, it hurts them more than us. And that doesn't, and a lot of athletes don't do that. A lot of them, especially guys who, like maybe like a Nick Castellanos or a Schwarber or somebody who's got their paycheck, who they make $20 million at the end of the year, no matter what happens, win or lose. So when you see a guy like Bryce Harper get mad at himself, mad at the situation, mad at the ump, mad at, for the way the game's going, and you know that he takes it as seriously as we take it, it goes a long way too. I think that's another factor in him that makes him, one of those top athletes of Philly history.
I think you guys are absolutely nailing it, because, I mean, yes, we see Bryce throw his helmet on a bad play by him, and he probably beats himself up more than any of the fans and his teammates, but that's because he wants it that much. He has that much passion, not only for the sport that he loves and is playing, but also now for our city, because he wants to go out there and perform day in and day out for us. And one of the things that does impress me is that not only him, but I think a majority, if not the entire team, is when they have a bad game. Sure, in the moment they get upset and they cuss and they throw things, but I honestly, truly believe that once they leave there, they leave it in the locker room and know that the next day or the next following day is a new game with a new outcome. So, I mean, I absolutely love, and I really think it speaks volumes for their leadership from top to bottom, regardless of age or experience. I mean, I think these guys just absolutely gel as a team, and they have grown into, especially with what happened last year, I mean, I think they've grown into this family, and they want to not only, play well for their teammate, their friend, their family, but for us as well. And that is just one of the things I absolutely love about this team. And I'm telling you, Bryce Harper, I mean, he's still very young himself, and he's still here for 10 plus years. If he takes over that first base spot, I mean, he could go down as one of the best first basemen in Phillies history. He's that athletic and that good.
He's unbelievable.
And he's probably kicking Rhys Hoskins out of his job if he ever had a chance to get it back, too, which is the funny
Rhys is going back to left field, if at all, and Schwarber's sticking with the DH.
All right, real quick, because there's a comment I want to talk about here, but real quick, guys, I remind you that this is brought to you by PhillySportsTrips.com. I told you they're going to be out in Pittsburgh for this next series, but if you waited way too long, because that sold out quickly, here's your next trip for the Phillies. They're heading out to San Diego. They're heading out to Petco Park. Definitely can have some playoff implications in that series, and it's freaking San Diego. What an amazing place to visit. So go there with a bunch of Philly fans. Go there with an amazing time, amazing atmosphere. You name it, they got it. Go to PhillySportsTrips.com. They got all the away games for the Eagles set up and so much more. Go to PhillySportsTrips.com and tell me EoP sent you. The comment I'm talking about, because it's going to kind of lead into the next part of the conversation here, is I know it's early from Chris, but if they make the playoffs, who will be the pitching rotation for the Phillies? So there is a way of breaking that down.
Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler.
Well, right now, right? If it started right now, but the trade deadline's looming, so that could change depending on which way they go. Joe, I'll start with you.
Hold on. Before you do that, everyone listening right now, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe. Please share this out. We really love your support. If you're watching on Facebook, we're going to post it in the chat right now. Just click on our YouTube. Even if you don't watch YouTube, just hit like, please, or hit subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, the trade deadline is looming. Joe, number one, who do you think they go bat, or they go arm, or they go both?
I do think that they go both. I mean, there's nothing telling me that they would do so otherwise. I mean, look what they did last year. They went out and they got both. I think that they have interesting pieces that they can trade away. I do think that they may try and, swing for a home run with the trade, and they might have to overpay and give up, an Abel or a McGriff or somebody like that, or De La Cruz. I mean, they're going to have to give away something. I just don't know for what, because I honestly think that they need pitching depth. Is it a Marcus Stroman? I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of things about him, but I mean, I'm sure I'm only looking at it at the Philly side of things. I'm sure all teams are kind of probably connected to him. Cody Bellinger, I think he would be a tall ask. He'd be a fantastic fit for this team. Tommy Pham, I know that there's a lot going on with them. And I could see that actually happening. I know he's coming back from an injury, if he's even back yet. And if he's not back yet, he'll be back soon. But, I mean, it's the Mets. So I don't know if they're even going to be willing to be, doing deals within the division. Who knows? I know the Paul Goldschmidt, that was something. But, I mean, I also look at it this way, is like when I look at our roster and I look at our pitching, I feel like these guys are starting to get into, and I know like we're like 3/4 through the season already, and it's way too long for these guys to be starting to get into their role player, mentality and stuff like that. But I do feel like taking somebody out of their spot in the lineup or their spot in the rotation, I think it does mess with them a little bit mentally. I think Sir Anthony coming back for the bullpen is huge. I don't know if they go with a bullpen piece. I think that is one of the positions, you don't really have to worry about. The huge thing is Bryce Harper staying at first base and getting Schwarber in that DH position, because obviously left field is now an option to go trade for. You hear the ridiculous stuff about Juan Soto. I don't think that's going to absolutely happen. You hear the that was my next name. That was my next name. There's a ridiculous stuff about Ohtani, because then who the hell are you going to give up? Abel, Bohm, Stott, all these other guys who are such contributors and such basically the young heart of our lineup and our team. Like, there's no way in hell I want Ohtani. And let me explain this, because Ohtani would be a rental. And then even if you had the chance to sign him, it'd be $500 million. And I'm taking Bohm, Abel coming up, De La Cruz, Stott, like these other like baseball is a team sport. It's not an eye sport. You know what I mean? It's not a one player sport. Having Ohtani would be great. Does it do much for the team and winning as a complete team and roster? Absolutely not. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. Ohtani's not happening. I guess if I had to pick my wish list, it would be Stroman and Bellinger, even though they're looking for a right-handed bat, and Bellinger is a left-handed bat, but he hits all the boxes. And if you're going to overpay, Stroman and Bellinger are both with the Cubs. So if you have to overpay, just swing for the fence, pun intended, and go out there and get the corner outfielder or first baseman in Bellinger and the depth at pitching that you need. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer knowing that you only have to deal with one ball club and then, get the needed pieces that you need. Sorry that I ranted.
No, it's perfect. But I think they, what I need and what I want, I agree with you. They're always going to go for both, because Dombrowski is always looking to make moves. Christopher Sanchez, though, has really kind of solidified the fifth spot. But we also know that once teams see you 5, 6, 7, 8 times, when we get this August, we're about to be in August, when we get to September, October, he might start getting rocked. And then we're like, what do we do now? So I definitely think they're going to attempt that. I think Tommy Pham is the move. It's just the Mets, like you said. Like, we need a right-handed left fielder. We need a right-handed bat. Bellinger I love, but he's a left-handed bat. And Schwarber, he cannot be in the field anymore. Like, he is analytics. Like, I'm not a big analytics guy, but he's eye test and analytics the worst fielder in baseball. Like, he is a terrible outfielder. And the analytics show he's the worst as well. He needs to be off the field. I'll deal with the bats and the streakiness. I really don't think he should be in the leadoff spot, but whatever. But, like, he needs to be a DH though. Like that diving catch the other night should have been just a catch. And it was just like, oh, what an amazing play that Schwarber almost made. And it was like, no, that shouldn't even have been close to an almost crazy play.
He ain't no Jake Cave.
No. If any one of our outfielders are out there, that's a catch.
So Adam Duvall's a guy that was pushed around. The Red Sox, the AL East is so competitive, and I know the Red Sox are 7 games above 500, but like he's a center fielder. He can also play left. He's a right-handed bat. Is that someone they look into? I really just I just feel like a big upgrade would be fielding-wise, right the left field position.
Chris is saying probably a bullpen arm. Now, Chris could be on to something. It all depends because Alvarado, to me, is not a guarantee he'll be back. They're really slow playing him. They said he's thrown a little bit, but he's not thrown from the mound. So that's a difference there. And if he's going to be down, we might see a reliever come in because that's a big loss in Alvarado. I mean, you can carry that for a little while, but if he's not going to be coming back or they're going to feel that this is going to be an ongoing health issue, that's another reason to be, where Chris might be on to something.
Well, let me just rebut that. If you go out there and get a Marcus Stroman or starting pitch depth, Sanchez becomes your added bullpen piece, and with Sir Anthony coming back, you're adding within that as well. So you have to think of this as well: a Stroman or just somebody who is a top 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And if the Phillies have control after the season, it kind of helps them in the situation of Aaron Nola, because if you can't match, a price with Aaron Nola, and I'll just use again Stroman as an example, then Stroman, gets thrown into that spot of Aaron Nola, and you've already given up the assets to get him. So if he's here, you don't need to bring back Aaron Nola.
No,
that's a great point.
It's a good.
Go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead.
That's all right. That's something I've been talking about. Like, people have been talking about that fifth starter. Sanchez has been doing a great job. Fred, I agree with you. After a while, you can get caught on. They can catch on to you. But I think he's got enough to get them to the end of the season, because the problem is if you go out and spend, because you're going to be spending a lot of money. At the trade deadline, you're spending more for most people than you normally should, right? If you go and spend on that fifth guy, unless he gets moved to the bullpen and becomes a big bullpen piece, he's useless after that, because you're not going to go 5 men. So you need a guy who's going to go in the first, second, third spot, fourth spot, maybe. I wrote an article about Blake Snell. If San Diego continues to move down, they got a huge, they're like the Mets. They got a huge payroll, and they're not going to they possibly won't make the playoffs. So they might not need to unload it. They're already talking about if Juan Soto's an option. I know they came out and said, "Oh, we're not trading Juan," but they can say that all they want to drive up the price. But if you're looking at that, Blake Snell, it would be a great place, because you can go Wheeler, Snell, and either Nola, then Ranger or Walker, but then move Ranger to the bullpen, because we've seen him be able to do that. And I would rather have Ranger out there than any other guy that's currently in the starting position. You can go a little bit on the cheaper side and go to Jordan Montgomery from the Cardinals, because they're down in the dumps right now. He's 30. He's in his prime. He's still good, but he would be a rental. So you're not going to have to overspend to get a guy like that. And he could be a third guy or a fourth guy. One guy that the New York Times tweeted out a little while ago was Mitch Keller from the Pirates, their ace. But he would probably cost a lot more. He's young. Okay, so he would cost a lot
absolutely.
more. But they said, the Pirates said that they're willing to shop him. They don't think the experts are saying they don't think he'll move, but if he's somebody to kick the tires on. I mean, he's on a sub-4 ERA. He's only 27 years old, and I think he's under control till like 2025, 2026. So, I mean, if you're going to make a big splash, that could be a big splash, because like Joe said, the Aaron Nola situation can become a problem. I mean, either he's going to sign for a lot lesser deal than he was hoping, or he's going to go, hopefully somebody else is going to sign and think they could bring back that Aaron Nola magic.
Walter checking in. Thanks for listening and supporting. Just got home, unable to watch the game, but glad they won. Bryce Harper is the man. We just went on a rant about Bryce Harper. You should check it out. He certainly is a special ball player. Thanks for listening.
I love Walt. He is always chiming in, especially on the finals. All right, guys. So you talked a little bit about the arms before we move on. Go ahead, Joe.
Hold on 1 second. we keep bringing up this whole rental type of trade. Like, I don't like, we've seen them go out like a Kyle Gibson, like, you know, a mid-tier type of trade. Like he had, you know, other years of control. Like, I don't think necessarily that they just go out looking for rental pieces. Like, I think there are other guys out there who have, you know, club control on their contracts that the Phillies can go out there and spend a little bit on. I mean, I hate thinking of it. Like, I know Noah Syndergaard was a rental, but that guy was so, you know, iffy that like you got basically, you know, you got the most out of him that you could get out of him for the remainder of the season and the playoffs. And because of that, he went out and he got bigger money. I mean, that's great. I mean, if he came in and played like crap, I don't know if the Phillies would have re-signed him, but he wouldn't have gotten that deal. So we got the best out of him. But I don't think necessarily Dombrowski's just going out and looking for rentals for the rest of this season.
Yeah, well, one other arm, because we're talking about the bullpen, and tell me what you guys would do. David Robertson. He's playing for the Mets. The Mets are falling down, and he's having a good season. Borderline.
He's always having a great season until he gets back here.
Bad juju. And the Mets are going to make you overpay in the division anyway. You just don't want to give anything to the Mets because whatever minor leaguer we might give them might be that like trade that turns. I would just stay away from them, even though
that's almost. But I was going to say that's almost like the scenario where I was just talking about, where you can get a Stroman and a Bellinger for overpaying. You can probably get a Robertson and a Pham together, and probably not have to overpay that much.
Well, and that's another team, like I said, like San Diego, like they may be willing to move on from a Blake Snell because of how high their payroll is, and they know that look how higher payrolls. We're still struggling. The Mets already showed it. They dealt their third baseman away weeks ago. You know, their starting third baseman, they dealt him away. Like, so these are teams that maybe want to kind of do a little reset, get some money off the books. Now, I don't know how much money they're going to save, but if they're looking to maybe get some prospects, that might be another way to do it, because then that's the only way I brought that up. Another retread, actually, you're going to see this weekend. Now, it's probably not the way, because the question was, would Bryce Harper work out at first base? But Carlos Santana, he's having a good year. I mean, he's again, he'd be a rental. He's 37 years old. He's just a bad
what
dude.
A mistake that was.
Yeah. There is another trade that they pop up and the talk up with the Phillies. I know it's probably not going to happen, but it's
not a chance.
I saw, looking around the old Twitter with the X machine now, which
not a chance.
But that's about it I have on them. Cody Bellinger one is the one to keep pumping out. I haven't heard much about Paul Goldschmidt anymore, but I don't think they sit on their duffs. But how much of a splash they make, I'll like to see.
See, I do that. I absolutely think that they make a splash. I mean, Dombrowski has never showed me anything to tell me that he's just going to sit on his hands. I mean, and I take this as an example with Christian Pache. I mean, he almost made the roster, the starting roster for the Oakland Athletics. He saw that because his eyes are everywhere. He went out there and he traded for him. And Pache, before getting injured for a second time, he was contributing. He was playing very well. I think he's going to be a contributor for years to come. And that, to me, just tells me Dombrowski has a real eye for this stuff. I mean, he has not done anything yet that has really taken the trust from me in him. So, I mean, I think we're going to start seeing some real rumors going around. I mean, we're July 26th. The trade deadline is within a week. I mean, we're going to start seeing some stuff, especially maybe even tomorrow with a day off. I mean, they're going to have to stay in the headlines somewhere where the Eagles going.
Yeah. Well, August 1st is the deadline. But, guys, I want to remind you that the show is brought to you by Sherry'sTickets.com. Not the only Phillies, only exciting news. The Eagles, of course, started today. So that means you want to get your tickets. It's going to be hard already. You want those premium tickets without paying premium prices? You go to Sherry'sTickets.com. No hidden fees, great prices, and save yourself an additional 10% off with that promo code EoP10. But if it's not just sports you're into, concerts, theaters, you name it, wherever you're at in the country, go to Sherry'sTickets.com, sign up, use that promo code EoP10, save 10% off, and have an amazing time. Guys, Eagles football is back.
Before we jump into that, I'm sorry. Before we jump into that, can I just there's something a story I wanted to tell 2 weeks ago, and I forgot, and then I went on vacation, and now here we are. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because something that reminded me of it that I read today. Now, is that okay?
Yes, you're allowed.
Okay, thank you. I was 2 weeks ago. I was up working, and I'm starting to watch these documentaries, these sports documentaries that aren't, always Philly based and everything like that, because I want to learn, I want to expand, I want to open my mind to other things that are going out there other than what we're just talking about. So I was watching this stuff on Netflix, and the first one I watched was this documentary on Ad One. We all know about the street basketball from back in the day that was popular, shoes, clothing, everything. So I'm watching it, and this kid from Philadelphia called the Professor. I've always heard of him back in the day. Never knew he was from Philadelphia. The kid was phenomenal. First inkling of, oh wow, that's cool, Philadelphia. I then go into another documentary about the Dansbury Trashers, which was a team brought up in minor league hockey, and the team was bought by this guy who was in construction, but he was, with the mob. And he bought the team for his son, and they constructed and put together this team of just bruisers going out there for the love of, causing hell, havoc, everything. And in the documentary, the guy goes, we wanted to mold our team around the 70s Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia Flyers. And I'm like, oh, wow. Second documentary in a row with a Philadelphia tie. So then it was the day that the show Quarterbacks was debuted. So then I'm watching that and, not thinking anything of it. And the three quarterbacks that it was based around was Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, and Patrick Mahomes. So I'm watching it, and then boom, week 2, Kirk Cousins getting routed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Continue to watch, me knowing in my head, oh, Patrick Mahomes, this is going to end with the Super Bowl. Okay, 2 out of 3 Philadelphia ties. As I'm sitting there, it pops in my head. Holy crap, Marcus Mariota is now the backup for the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 documentaries in a row, all centered around Philadelphia. The reason I bring this up today is because I was scrolling through Twitter earlier, first day of practices for training camp, and for whatever reason, the show was brought up to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts says, I was asked to do quarterbacks for that last season. I was supposed to be one of the showcase quarterbacks. I turned it down. He said that he was asked for this upcoming season. He turned it down again because he didn't feel like it was the right time. Obviously, we all know what he's waiting for if and when he's going to do it. But reading that today just showed me again, 2 weeks after, how all sports are revolved around Philadelphia and Philadelphia sports. And I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, that was a comment I was going to bring up from Jalen. I mean, we all talk about his intangibles. We talk about how great of a guy he is, a leader, he's poised and all that. Again, there's a guy who could go on that show and become famous and build his brand and make himself a ton of money outside of the NFL that he's already making a ton of money on. And he says, no, I don't want to do it. I'm more focused on this.
He said now's not the time. Like, he'll do it at some point, but he's got his eye on the prize, and the prize is
absolutely.
And he hasn't gotten the Super Bowl yet. And I couldn't love him more for it. Like you just said, Al, the intangibles. That's exactly what you want out of a Philadelphia player, let alone the quarterback, franchise player of the entire of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. And then, he had another quote says, I can't say what the benefits are. We haven't done anything yet. And they were asking about, what was the benefits about being able to go to the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl? And he says, I can't tell you yet. I don't know yet because we haven't done anything yet. So that's the mind, because a lot of guys throughout the NFL, quarterbacks, I don't care what positions, but quarterbacks especially, dude, we got to the Super Bowl and they can just ride that wave for a while. Almost like it's going to happen again. To him, no, there is no definite this is going to happen again, but he's going to make damn sure that everything he can do to make happen, and it will happen. And that's why I know everybody's saying, going back to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row is really difficult.
Really difficult? It hasn't happened since 1974.
I think it's going to happen in 2023 and 2024. That's not me being a homer. It's just the stars do align in this situation. The stars do align. Joe, I know you put a post out kind of alluding to all this, but I know we lost our coordinators. People are very high already on both coordinators, from Brian Johnson to Sean Desai. I really like Sean Desai. I think he's going to bring more than Gannon could, which is not going to be hard to do in some ways. And I think he's going to mix things up. He's going to be more aggressive without being overly aggressive, because that was not something we saw from Gannon. It was vanilla a lot. The whole bend don't break. I think you're going to see from Desai. You're going to see somebody he's going to stunt. He's going to fake blitz. He's going to do a lot of different things to draw people off sides, to get people thinking, kind of like you saw from a Vic Fangio, kind of like you saw in Seattle, places that he's worked with and worked under. A lot of people are off on him. I don't know why. I mean, I can understand the unknown factor, but I know I'm excited to see what he has to bring to the table. What are your guys' thoughts on the Eagles' future going forward and the new coordinators?
Like what happened to today, because to people listening, training camps today, the news and notes, what happened today. I know. Staying on the Hurts train, I hate what Elliott Shore-Parks used to do this when Wentz was here, and even before Wentz. But he's the first guy that actually tracks the quarterback stats. Hurts today, 6 of 10, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a lot of quarterback runs. That's good stuff. That's a good first day.
Absolutely.
Right?
Hell yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. These first days, the only thing you really can watch is, the receiving and the pass breakups. I mean, you're not gonna see much more than that. But yeah, I mean, to see the guys energized and have a decent day, take it for what it is. I take these stats very generally, but yeah, it's important to see that these guys are working on it, want to work on it, and that was my biggest worry. How are these guys going to come back from? Are they going to come back more excited to play because of the loss in the Super Bowl? They're going to be downhearted, or are they going to rest on their laurels? And everything right now is pointing to me that it's a positive. They're going to use it to going forward, and just on the first practice like this to see things like that, it's borderline awesome.
Yeah, I think. See, I did that post earlier, and really, the only thing that really makes me so confident in how I was thinking, what I am thinking, and how I'm going to continue to think is when I look at the NFC East and I look at who is the biggest threat to the Eagles when it comes to that number 1 seed. And I think, in consensus with everyone, you have to say that it's San Fran. But then I look at San Fran and I do think, hey, if Brock Purdy comes back and if he is their starting quarterback, I compare Brock Purdy to Jalen Hurts, and it is absolutely night and day. And I think the San Fran defense is going to take a step back with D'Amico gone. And then I look at all the other teams, the Bucs have Baker Mayfield, the Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. Arizona has a new coach in Gannon who's going to muff things up. I mean, the Giants will probably fight in the division, but they're not going to be better than the Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys will get their, probably 10, 11, 12 wins again, but they're not a real threat. I look around the league, the NFC East, and just the NFC in general, really, and I think of who is a real, a competitor at the top spot with the Eagles, and I just don't see who it is because I think Howie Roseman has put together such a solid lineup when it comes to the starting talent and the depth that, I mean, we talk about it all the time, plug and play. And I don't see any other team in the league that can plug and play like the Eagles. And this is, and I think it has to do with a lot of credit towards Howie Roseman because Al, like you and other people that we know of, at least Al, you've kind of made a 180. Some people still talk down on them. Some people, they're just they have no idea what they're talking about. But I feel like just over the years, he has learned from his mistakes, and that's exactly what you want to see. Like, he is not one that's going to like rest on his laurels and be like, oh no, I made that decision for this reason and I would do it again, with a second shot. He's like, no, I messed up. And, I am trying to rectify the problem right now, fix these issues, i.e. Carson Wentz. They gave the contract too soon. He turned around and he, got rid of him for an absolute haul that it turned out to be. There's no other GM in the NFL like Howie Roseman, and there's no other team that has been built like this by another GM. They're just head and shoulders above everybody else. And if you want to even talk about the AFC, the only team is, in my opinion right now, I'm sorry, two teams, I would say the Bills and the Chiefs. I mean, and when it comes to Jalen Hurts, until there is another one or two quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts is your top two. I'll give him that. Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. But Jalen Hurts is your number 2 quarterback in the league, and he's in midnight green, and he's going to be for a long time.
With Jalen Hurts, it's the thing. He had a good day at training camp today. The thing is, he did so well last year, it's almost inevitable that he would take somewhat of a step back. And that doesn't mean he's going to be bad or anything, but it was just so unbelievable. Like his turnover ratio, all that stuff. Like what? But then again, on the other hand, his hard work, like, could he take this to another level even further? I mean, runner up to the MVP is pretty close, and getting the MVP, I feel like there's not much more you could do. Like, how much further can he push this? So I'm really excited where Hurts can get. I'm just so happy football's back, training camp. Brandon Lee, the tweets like down here, first day, like you were just saying, Al, there's going to be other mistakes. It hasn't been Chris, the pre-snap penalties, Sirianni's yelling at everyone. I think that's a big thing that Sirianni is yelling at everyone at camp today. Like, he needs to set the tone, because back when he first was here, that was the thing we always heard. Hey, Nick Sirianni is up in the receivers' faces, showing them how to do the routes, this and that. And with a totally new coaching staff, as I think you were talking about, Joe, it's very important that Sirianni sets the tone with this new team and says, hey, there are a lot of guys that were here before, but to these new coaches as well, like, this is how we roll. This is how these training camps operate, and I'm setting the tone today. Al, what do you think about the yelling from Sirianni?
Well, listen, I'm an old school guy. I like when they get in their face. Like, these guys might be millionaires, but they got to remember that they have to earn that money, and they're just getting back. And as a coach, you kind of have to, even though you've coached a lot of these guys before. I feel sometimes Nick Sirianni doesn't get the respect across the league. As everybody is, well, he's not Andy Reid. Well, that's a kind of a high bar to set in my eyes. But he, in 2 years has been to the playoffs. He was in the Super Bowl in the second year. And people can say, hey, well, you have a good team around you. Well, you can have the best team around you, but if you don't know how to operate, then it doesn't matter. You can have all the great pieces, but if you don't know how to put the puzzle together, it's pointless. And the other thing is, I brought this up last year a little bit, because one thing Nick Sirianni kind of got roasted for last year was how, quote unquote, soft and light his training camp was. Days off in between, not working the guys too much, more video time versus field time, from former players down. It all talked how it was too soft, but we were in the Super Bowl with all 22 starters. That doesn't rarely happen, okay? Really doesn't happen much often. Jalen Hurts was down for a little bit. We have had a couple guys who missed some time, but overall, this team was super healthy. And I compared it. I mean, how many times did we go in over the last 5 years before that with Doug and have a lot of key injuries in the beginning of the season? Now, we all know that the start of the season, we call it extended training camp, those first 3-4 games sometimes, depending on how ready your team is. Every team's going to go through that. It's health. Availability is the most important, best ability. We always heard that. So I'm going to trust the man. I like that he's in their face. I think he needs that. He kind of tables that players coach, but aggressive coach at the same time. And I think he does a good balance of it.
How about you, Joe? I mean, it got softer. Training camp got softer this year. I think they're off tomorrow. It even got even softer than it was last year. But
yeah,
the proof is in the pudding. The injuries were down, especially the
yeah.
quarterback.
I'm kind of tipping towards Al. I mean, I'm old school as well. I get it. I mean, I was just listening to Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey talk about Andy Reid's training camp, and one of the things that Jason Kelsey hated that Andy Reid does that Nick Sirianni does, and I won't go into that. But I'm literally looking at my TV right now, and the helmets that they have now, these big white fluffy helmets. Last year they were joking with the bubble wrap on top of their helmets and stuff. But I mean, I think I don't necessarily think it's Nick Sirianni being soft. I think it's just the way that the league is going now, because they're not pushing these guys the way that they used to. 2-a-days, tackling, stuff like that. I mean, it's all about, especially when it comes to, you know, the players' health. Out to your point, all the players being healthy going into the Super Bowl. The CTE is huge right now, or at least was, and still continuing to be. So I think it's little different factors like that that coaches need to now, you know, imply apply to their system when it comes to training camp practices. OTAs, like anything that I mean, listen, the preseason got cut in half. I mean, like it's not necessarily Nick Sirianni babying these guys, or, you know, letting the veterans kind of decide what they're going to do when they want to do it. I think it's the NFL as a whole kind of saying to them, like, hey, back her down a little bit, because we are worried about these future, you know, head injuries, season and career ending injuries, just like little stuff like that. So like, even though we kind of really base all of our knowledge and know-how and look into around Philadelphia and seeing what Nick Sirianni and the Eagles are doing, we technically don't know what these other teams are doing as well. So I don't look down upon Nick about, you know, whatever he's doing, because whatever he's doing is working. So who am I to tell him to switch it up and go back to the old school and get in these guys' faces like a Jimmy Johnson and an Andy Reid and start yelling at these guys? Like, do you? Like, you know more than I do at this point.
And he does do that. I think there's a big difference between rest and proper rest and yelling at guys. Like, when they go, they go. Like today, he was up in people's faces screaming at them. But now they're going to be off tomorrow, and they're going to get a loaded break. And like you just said, the proof is in the pudding. It's working. it is working, and they're staying healthy. One other comment that Sirianni made today is Cam Jurgens will be the first guy up at right guard for now. And I know we've been back and forth. We already talked about it, but no surprise there. I guess he'll start there. Tyler Steen will work in there. I think, Joe, you might have brought this up last week or 2 weeks ago, is Kelsey's not going to practice or play in the preseason. He'll practice a little bit, but he's not really going to play. So who's going to play center anyhow? They're going to have to put Jurgens at center, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then, of course, because they want the first look, it's Tyler Steen at right guard.
Yeah. Well, but the problem is, if you're trying to him at a right guard, you don't put Cam Jurgens in at right guard where you think he's going to be playing all year long in the preseason, or
who's snapping the ball?
Right.
I was going to say.
I know he has the ability to, but like, he's not a center. Dennis Kelly, they just traded for. He's back. The Dorial Green Beckham trade.
Oh my God!
Dennis Kelly trade. I'm like, wait, that guy, he's back. But
and they're all like excited about it too.
I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I would imagine he'll get the reps, because if you're going to go if he's going to start at right guard now, then that means they intend him to be the starter. But Tyler Steen also, remember, has never played guard before, so it's going to take time to work him into that position as well. And he has the short arms. That's why he's in there. It'll be interesting to see how that all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I agree with you, Joe. Yeah, you would think, hey, put him in. He's the center of the future. But if he's going to be playing right guard all year, what is the point? Like, you want the guy to get a feel for right guard. So it is a bit of a conundrum how they'll work all that out. And let me ask you guys, because you guys brought it up. Joe, you said it. They shortened the preseason games. How much do you guys? I mean, I know it's not really televised, but the the joint practices between with the other teams. Do you guys like that better? Do you think they get more out of it, or do you just because as a fan you don't get to see as much?
I really don't care for it. But again, I could take it or leave it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm not, even if it was televised, I wouldn't be watching it. Like, I went down for like that live practice that they have. I think they have 1 or 2 of them, every off season. Like, I was okay seeing that once. I don't have to go back. Like, I wouldn't take the time out of my day to watch a walkthrough practice scrimmage with another team.
I would go, but I don't care either. I don't think they wouldn't televise it.
I don't think it helps.
I mean, I
think it helps.
I think only dorks are into it. Like, and I'm a dork about it. Like, I would love to see like a 2-on-2 drill with the dummy set up with like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter against the top lineman on the Browns. You know what I mean? I would love watching that matchup. But again, I'm not upset that it's not. Was it ever televised before?
No,
they're closed. I don't even think. I think media is in there for maybe the first 15 to 30 minutes tops, and then they kick them out. So
30 minutes? It's got to be more than that. Really?
No, they're not. They're not in there that long. And if they are, they have to stay way back. But the reason I like it is kind of what you said, Fred. There, like they get to go up against guys that they're not teammates with. Also, they do a lot of situational practice. Like, they'll do a lot of red zone stuff. They'll do a lot of goal line stuff with each other. They'll be like, all right, it's 4th and whatever here, and work on situational things that you don't get to do in games all the time because the situation might not come up, or it might not be with the starting guys or something. So I do like it. I think from getting a team ready standpoint, I think it's better because, like Joe, you said, those starters ain't going to play, and if they do, it's going to be a series at tops. So I think they get more out of that they can set up the situations and work out all those situations and be prepared for them more than they're going to get from one series in a preseason game.
Definitely. They definitely do more there. But I think the televising thing was the question, right? So
I'm just saying it's like televising versus also just like what you're interested in it, like do you think it's important or not overall?
Gotcha. Well, Joe, you brought this topic up on our Twitter. It's a good one. We've been talking a lot of offense. What position battle on defense are you most looking forward to this training camp? Who wants to go first?
I'll throw it out there. I'm really excited to see what Sidney Brown can do. I mean, we've seen his highlights. We've seen him. We know just how athletic he is. We've seen his build. The dude is built like a brick S house. I'm curious to what they're going to do with him, because the Eagles right now have so much on the shoulders of Nakobe Dean when it comes to that linebacker position. I wonder if they're going to kind of line Sidney Brown up as like a strong safety, kind of play him more in that center field so he can run up and help in situations. I think and the funny thing is everyone's comparing him to Dawkins, which is absolutely ridiculous at this point. But I mean, not to say that he can grow into that type of thing, but I see him being as aggressive and being as athletic, maybe to the point of a Dawkins. Well, I'll just go with the aggressive part. I can see him wanting to be in there, put in, a shoulder, head to the body, like everything. He's in there. And I'm really excited especially because it's such a question mark at the safety position. Reed Blankenship, I think, is already slotted in there. Terrell Edmonds, you have no idea what's going to happen with him. I mean, Sidney Brown, he was what, a fourth round draft pick? I mean, I think that is pretty high draft capital to, signify that he's going to get, a good amount of reps, or at least a good look at, especially in the preseason and, some live game motion going on. Like, I'm very excited to see Sidney Brown going forward.
All the guys like on Chalk Talk and Dives and them that cover like the draft and like all year round, they love Sidney Brown, dude. Like, they're all about him. I agree with you. I'm very intrigued to watch him, But I think it's more he's going to take Reed Blankenship's job. I think Terrell Edmonds is going to be the other guy on the other side. I think the Eagles are pretty good at picking out safeties when it's a free agent thing. They're just not so good at drafting them. They used to not even try to draft them. So besides golf, probably like they draft them and try to make them linebackers, Nate Jerry, for some reason. But I'm very intrigued to see Sidney Brown as well. It's a mid-round pick, like you said, and they spend that type of capital. They're going to expect him to contribute, no doubt about it. Al, who's your camp battle that you're interested in?
I don't know how much of a battle it is because
on defense. Not a position. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Position I'm going to be, you already kind of named him earlier, it was Nakobe Dean. A lot of people are on and off about him. They're up in the air about him. The linebacker position, people still think it's pretty thin. I mean, even if it was a small sample size, I kind of go back to that Titans game when he actually got some playing time and all that. I mean, he was in all the tackles for the most part when he was in the game. He led the team that day in tackles, I believe, if I remember correctly. He had a tackle for loss. The guy, he might be smaller in stature, but he's willing to put his body on the line, and he's willing to get in the mess with somebody. So how he becomes as a leader is the other key factor, because we all know that he's getting a green dot on the back of his helmet. Here's a guy who played very little last year outside of special teams for the Eagles, and now he's going to be the leader of that defense. It's a huge jump. So it's going to be between that and having a new coordinator. So he's got to learn with him. Those two got to learn to work together and have their back and forth. So yeah, I really am. I like Nakobe Dean. I don't understand why he slipped as far as he did based on whatever crazy things that were put out there. I understand for his size and all that stuff maybe was one of the reasons, but I think he could be really good going forward into the future. Not this year, but future for the Eagles, kind of shoring up a spot that kind of was always a little lackluster for the Eagles.
Yeah, per Tim McManus, the first linebacker pairing was Nakobe Dean and Nicholas Morrow, with Christian Ellis rotating in for Morrow. Joe, what are you feeling on the linebackers position?
Do we know exactly where Nolan Smith is lining up?
Could he be used in a Reddick type role?
Yeah, I'm going to guess.
So depending on
like today, Reddick didn't practice today. He filled in Reddick's role and spotted and then took reps with BG. And when BG would get a blow, he would jump in there too.
And BG was raving about him, so I'm guessing he's definitely going to be more on the outside there than anything.
Yeah, I think if they and we've said Sean Desai is going to experiment. And he's going to try different packages. He's going to try different fits, different schemes, see what works best for him with the talent that he has. Nakobe Dean, I'm actually pretty high on Nakobe Dean. Not only after the sample size against that Titans, lackluster squad, but I think he has the fire in him. I think he's ready for that moment, and I think he knows that it's kind of on his shoulders at this moment as being the leader of that linebackers group. In certain packages, could I see Nolan Smith being back there with him? I think I could. And if that is what it comes down to, is Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean, I mean, if it all works out, I mean, that is lethal. I mean, there are people out there. First off, from what I'm hearing is Nolan Smith was a standout today in practice number 1. So I mean, if he can get on the field and find a position with Reddick on there, Nakobe Dean, whoever's playing defensive end opposite Reddick at the moment, whether it's a Sweat, Brandon Graham, whoever, doesn't matter. Maybe Milton Williams was out there. Who the hell knows? If they can get these guys to just I don't. The whole war. What the hell is his name? Nick what? Nick. I'll keep wanting to say Morrow. I keep wanting to say Paul Warlow, who the Eagles had X amount of years ago. Nicholas Morrow. You're right. Yeah, I mean, listen, the guy's serviceable. Once they signed him on the cheap, I think it was like a vet minimum or whatever. I did a little bit of dive on him, And he's serviceable, and that's kind of what the Eagles kind of look for at this moment for that position. So whether it's Morrow and Dean, if they could sprinkle some Nolan Smith in there, I know it's a tall ask. He's a rookie. I think it's going to be the prototypical Eagles linebacker squad, really.
Yeah, Morrow's interesting. He actually led the Bears in tackles last year. It was a bad Bears team, but he led the team in tackles. I think a guy at the linebacker spot to look at is Christian Ellis. He was an undrafted rookie. He was on the practice squad all year. He got moved up last year. He looked good. He played today some. I think here it is. Do I have it here? Hold on. Boop, 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 boop. I just have it as a scroll, but he picked up where that intercepted Marcus Mariota near the goal line, pushing for a roll. That was Tim McManus' tweet on him.
Yeah,
that's
there's
an interesting one.
There's a few tweets, few guys talking about Ellis. So he could definitely make his way into a spot for the linebacker core. And like I said, I think this linebacker core is better than people think in some ways. It's funny in my notes I'm looking here. I talk all about Dean and how. What they could do with the current linebacker core, but I would also not be surprised to see how he maybe make a move for another, not top tier linebacker, but a linebacker to add to the mix, depending on what they see.
I honestly think if he makes any move, it's for Budda Baker. I mean, I think that is the only move that he would probably do right now. And then who knows? Maybe trade for him and you do throw Sidney Brown up there in a linebacker position. Who knows?
Maybe.
Oh my God! If they did, I don't like that if they moved them up. But I hate when they do that actually because it fucking never works. It never ever works moving safeties up the linebacker, at least for the Eagles. But my position, and I guess it's you guys kind of have the other two, and it's kind of a layup. But it just really excites me. It's the defensive line, like it's just you got Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, and Milton Williams ran with the first team reps. I'm very intrigued how they're going to use this and how they're going to cycle through all the guys. Then you got Brandon Graham. Jesus, the guy we just spoke about. How did I lose the Jordan?
Hassan Reddick.
Hassan Reddick. And then Derek Barnett is here as well. And
I forgot about him.
It's a $3.16 million cap hit, which isn't crazy. You know what I mean? But there's a chance he makes the team. So I just want to see how this pans out, how they use Nolan Smith. He really stopped the run well at Georgia last year, but he's undersized for the NFL. So I just don't know that that's going to work out. I'm just so intrigued with the defensive tackle and defensive end spot. That's kind of where I'm at. I think it really doesn't – there's no bother to name the starters because they're going to rotate. It's more like – what the snap counts are. We've seen that through the Sirianni coaching staff, at least under Gannon, that a player could start and only have X amount of percentage of the snaps. So whatever the snap counts are as the season goes on. In preseason, though, it's going to be fun to watch. Really, really, Nolan Smith. I really want to see him explode, as well as Jalen Carter. They said today Jalen Carter had a sack or
within 2 seconds.
And, it's training camp though. But they also said in the drills, he was whooping the crap out of the veteran linemen and I know we have a good versatile set of veteran linemen as well, so it's not like they're terrible. So I'm definitely interested in the D line. That's where I'm hanging at.
And the old saying is iron sharpens iron. These O line and D lines only going to get better going against each other in practice. That's the key factor here. These young guys, I know Jason Kelsey's not going to play as much. Maybe Lane, practice as much. Maybe Lane is not going to practice as much. But the other guys, Jordan Mailata going up against big men like that. Tyler Steen trying to get it. Talk about, being, baptism by fire. If you're Tyler Steen coming in against a Jalen Carter or something like that, just a big monster in the front there. So that's going to be that's going to be something to really watch and see how those groups, the offensive and defensive line, develop going into the season, because it's only going to make them better against who they play against down the line. guys, I want to remind you, there's a lot going on here at EoP. If you've missed it, don't worry. All the live shows are podcasted. You can go back on EOPsports.com, go back to YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is. It's all on there. Tonight was an amazing lineup, as always. Party on Broad at 6, Philly Press Box Radio at 7. Of course, Joe, Fred, and myself here at EoP Live. Fighting's Final a little later. Then tomorrow, Talking Philly Sports with Matty B will be back. And don't forget the rest of the Fighting's Final for the rest of the week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Steel Steps, Patterson and Fanatics, PM in the AM, and all across all the time. All that and so much more. All great content coming out constantly here at EoP Sports. Woo!
What a lineup. What a lineup that was. Exciting stuff, like you said, Al. I know we only got a couple minutes left, but there was some basketball news that dropped that was intriguing. And Nick Nurse to mold Paul Reed into Pascal Siakam?
Is that a big ask?
Yeah, it's a big ask.
I was gonna say, I would have molded, this,
Pascal Siakam was like an all-star.
What I'm saying, is that a statement?
I thought you were saying it's not a big ask.
No, I'm just saying, a statement like that's pretty ridiculous in some ways, because I would. Okay, I want to take Tyrese Maxey and mold him into Kobe Bryant. Sure, I would love to do that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's a big ask. But if anybody knows how to get the best out of somebody like a Siakam, and maybe he sees, the body type, he sees the athletic ability of Paul Reed, and he thinks he can either get, maybe even a Walmart brand Pascal Siakam out of Paul Reed, it might be worth it.
Joe, you in our tweet, you were the first one to say it. I think it's spot on. What was your first response when you saw that?
So Paul Reed and Joel Embiid will be on the court together.
Yeah, ain't that exciting?
I'm if it works out, yes, I'm absolutely excited. But we also kind of, and I'm not tying in the Siakam thing, but we saw two bigs on the court together with Embiid and Al Horford, and it was a nightmare. Of course, it was with a different coach. In fact, it was 2 coaches ago. So I just. It was with Doc. But I don't know how it's going to play out, because I just don't know. In all honesty, I can't wait to see how it does play out, because I do think that Paul Reed deserves a bigger role and more minutes, a bigger opportunity. But without him being on the court with Joel Embiid, I don't know how you get that. So if Nick Nurse is the way to get him on the court with Joel Embiid, I am all for it.
Yeah, Joe, and I agree with you. I can understand what you see, the whole Al Horford situation and how the two bigs didn't get together. But that's 2 different bigs. Al Horford a lot older, athletic. Sure. He's athletic, but not nearly like Paul Reed in that situation. And I think, and you got 2 guys in Joel Embiid and Al Horford who played their way, but those type of plays as big men didn't jive. So I think if anybody could mold anybody, it would be Paul Reed. You could mold him, and Nick Sirianni maybe would be the guy who does that, because I think that's a great idea in some ways, because right now, unless Joel Embiid has an epiphany and kind of plays more like a big man, a little less going out to the key, shooting threes, doing things like that, having another big man but knowing his role could be a big difference than what they tried to do with Al Horford and Joel Embiid.
I think.
Hey, you know what?
Go ahead, Joe.
This thought kind of just popped in my head, because I wanted to bring up the whole Joel Embiid saying, I just want to win a championship, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. You never know. They could be molding Paul Reed to be a successor of Joel Embiid if he demands a trade.
That's a huge ask. You're talking about the MVP of the league for a guy you just...
Sure, but I just mean somebody who's ready to step in.
But I think it might be the opposite of what you said, Al. Joel Embiid might be back at the 3-point line a bit, and that's going to provide the spacing necessary for
That's
Paul
what I'm
Reed
saying. I think that's why. Yeah,
you can rebound, absolutely.
You him down there. But at the same time, I crushed Paul Reed's stats the one night just to kind of play devil's advocate 2 weeks ago. In the G League, or whatever it's called, it's G League now, yeah. He actually shot 40% from free in that league. So he may have the ability to knock down the 3. And, we knocked it. We just crushed Doc week after week. Like, can you at least freaking try it? He refused to try it. And maybe Doc is knowledgeable enough to know, hey, in practice, this ain't going to work. But I'm very intrigued, but more so that at least we have a coach that is going to try things in game. And if we lose, we lose. See what happens. Much rather be a 5th seed and know our plan going to the playoffs than just stick to a boring brand that is going to win regular season games and then not be prepared in the playoffs.
Sure.
One last thing for me is I can't wait for Doc Rivers' first game commentating a Sixers game. Cannot wait for it. I can't wait.
I don't know if I would want a whole game of commentating from Doc Rivers.
Well, that's what you're getting because the Sixers are going to be in prime time a lot.
He'll be good.
Yeah, but
he'll be good.
I'm sure he'll be fine. But can you imagine if James Harden's back and he's going to be like he's going to be? I honestly think he's going to have some digs. I do. I can't wait.
That'd be great. That actually would be awesome.
A lot of tweets. All right, guys. I want to remind you, check us out here at EoPSports.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Trend, or was it Threads? Threads now. I get used to that too. We're all over the place. If you can't find us, you're not
X
looking.
Now. It's not Twitter.
No, yeah.
We're gonna keep up with everything. These owners are nuts, dude. Just let us live. Never mind. I'm going too far.
It's all right, man. Check it out, guys. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Big Al.
I'm Joe Shear.
I'm Freddie Burns.
And we out.